Welcome, future masters. What is this guy doing? Knight takes. With knight takes, I mean, whatever, dude. Here, d5. Here, d6. I would just take it. King takes. Here, idiots. So, my gut reaction is that taking this is a draw. It is. Takes, king takes. H4, he gets in the square and just snags it. Here, he can get in the square as well, but I can take this. Actually, you know what? If I take this, he gets in the square. He can't. Oh, he can take my knight, yes, and then get in the square, right? Okay, so I can't take it. Here, he has to go after it or not. So, H4, if he goes after it, I go here. Take it. He can't go after my pawn because I would just play knight back to F5, and I win this because he can never take the knight. This is the move right here for sure. You can't take it, stupid. I just take your pawn. I just go here. You lose. That is a 3,000 puzzle that I just stomped. Hopefully you're paying attention. We'll come back to that. That was awesome. That's the first one. Ugh. Well, it seems to me, kaboom, 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 but he boxes me in. So king takes h5, you cannot, king takes a4, you cannot lose as black. Well, I say that. King takes a4, he could play b6, a5, and then, well, actually, you could just go king takes, king b6, king b4, king takes pawn, a5, king goes out of the way, a4, b6, a3, b7, a8 queen. So I take this. If I take this, I lose. You can go a5. Oh, wait a second. Right, a5, king b6, takes, king here. He moves out of the way. Then I go 5. I'm already 5. I'm 4. He goes 6. a5. He goes here. I take. Oh, he can't take. He can't play king b6 as I'll take his pawn. Here, he's in bad shape, man. Yeah, this is just winning. Well, actually, this is forced here. Well, that's a mistake. He has to play boxing in to have a shot. Without a box in, he has no shot. 27-48. I'm a master of king and pawn endings, and then some, as you see time after time. Oh, look at this side rank mate. Check, pawn takes, rook checks. You go there. Check, you're screwed. Corner mating pattern. And you saw me just walk through 2650 like it was a nothing. This is from scientific study. This is where my science training is coming to bear with full power, as you're seeing. I mean, I'm a good player, obviously, but the thing that's killing, and I see this conceptually, like how many moves is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now I didn't calculate this entirely 11 moves. I don't have to. This is a pattern recognition problem. That's just why I did it so quickly. It's because my brain has these patterns. This is, based off of a side rank mate pattern. I'm instantly looking at knight takes here, just for the familiarity, and also the fact you see all this bishop. I can't hardly explain it. It's the Swiss cheese of his dark squares. So knight takes, check, forces, pawn takes. I get the rook check for free. Awesome. I go, yeah, he's going to just put his bishop there, and instead of, I could play rook takes bishop, check, right? That doesn't do anything. I'm after bigger game. I'm, as Charles Barkley would say, I'm big game hunting. Okay? This is the devastating move. His bishop is pinned. He only has one legal move, and that's king forward. Now, I could calculate this very easily because there's a lot of forced moves. But this was my pattern recognition, and my spidey senses are just pretty darn sharp. They're not grandmaster sharp. That's another level, okay, or international master sharp. There's room to improve. I'm just telling you. I'm not full of myself. But be good at whatever you're good at, and know that you're good at it. But also know when you have improvements to be made. Okay, and I can still get better. And I've been getting better, even though I'm 60 years old. Okay, so that was the greatest 3-0 probably I've ever done. And really, I cooked to this 3,000 like it was nothing. Okay, this is just, now, yes, this is chess power, but this is also logic power once I recognized and put these things in their position. So my chess power allowed me to calculate knight takes pawn, draws. Sorry, he's here. Knight takes pawn, draws. He takes my pawn, my knight. My king is in the square, it's no problem. And I'm in front. He has no chance to cash this pawn. So he would just take this. I play here. He moves into the square. King to e4. And that's a draw. I'd push this pawn. He'd kill it. And then he'd be so far away, I'll just walk up and whack this dude. So that's a draw. So knight takes pawn clearly doesn't work. There's only three things. I can move a pawn, move a knight, and move a king. I'm already in the square. I don't gain anything with my king by moving it. As a master of king and pawn endings, I know I don't have to mess with this. The knight, so by logical deduction, knowing what these things that I know, in theory, a much lower ranked player could go, well, that if I tell you knight takes pawn is a draw, and that your king can catch this, you don't have to be a high-ranked player to go, well, then, that does leave by deduction A4, H4. He goes after it, and then this is where the chess knowledge comes in. Again, this is not a calculation thing. This one was, knight takes D4 is a calculation evaluation. I don't need to calculate this. He can never take this knight because this pawn queens. Game over. So this pawn is a chump. I take this pawn because I go right back to this place that I was. Now, knight F3 is a mistake. He takes the knight and he draws, okay? This only works with the knight behind the pawn. So the knight can guard this pawn from behind against a king, and you don't have to move it. He can't take the knight, he can't take the pawn. So again, I'm just going to waltz up there, take that e-pawn, and then go queen that pawn, and there's not a thing he can do about it. I'll essentially move up in here and eventually shoehorn him with king to f3 preventing him, and they're just going to squeeze him and cash this pawn. So it is a 3,000 problem. I never beat one before. I almost beat one. But it's the way I did it is the key. You got to recognize the elements of the position. Well, if it's within your grasp. And then by putting those elements together in their proper sequence, it was a cakewalk. And I'm sure you guys would have to answer that, I did make it look easier than you would expect a 3,000 problem to be. But that's because it's in my element. I am awesome at king and pawn endgames because I studied those to learn the nuances, because that's where you cash against the good players, because they're not going to give you a piece or an exchange or lose their queen for a rook or whatever. A lot of times to beat a master player, you're going to have to beat him in the end game, and if you can only beat a master in the end game by luck or by skill. And I've never beaten a master in the end game by luck. It's always been skill. Well, okay, that's not true. I'm thinking I can think of one example. The time was getting low. I got lucky in that one because it was really a draw. So, okay, one time I guess it was sort of lucky. The guy made a mistake that wasn't obvious. But it was a time pressure mistake. So if you want to call a time pressure mistake luck, well then yes, it was by luck. It happened once that I can recall. Okay, this was another one. Like I said, I'm awesome at king and pawn endgames. Let's look at this. A5 is the move. Clearly, pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes pawn, and white isn't going to win, but he cannot lose. He just goes king to b6, king to b4, king takes pawn, draw. Okay, no problem. So this doesn't win. Pawn takes pawn doesn't win. b6 also, now that's loses. b6 check loses. King takes b6, goodbye Charlie. Okay, that's what my dad would say. So b6 loses, a takes b5, draws. King moves do nothing. He's going to go to b6 and kick my butt. All right, these either king c3 or king to anything either draws or loses. So the only move that could possibly win is a5. Again, this is low grade calculations. You don't have to be more than 1200 to see that pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. He cannot lose. All right, white cannot lose after pawn takes pawn. b6 loses, king takes pawn. Any 1200 would go, I'll take this pawn, and he's going to be right and winning. Pawn, whatever. So it's his toast. So we got this by process of elimination. The only move that could win is a5. Now I did use my calculations to verify this, because that's what masters do. You've got to verify your stuff. If you take it for granted, it wouldn't have cost me this problem, but it'll cost you in the future, and you're going to go, God, I'm an idiot. Why was I so lazy? Because you were lazy. All right. Anyway, so this pawn is gone. a4 is a dust. So he pushes, I take. Now I thought he'd have a shot of trying to box me in by playing king to c4, king to a3, king to c3. But I guess I can break the boxing by playing a4, and then when he gives ground, he can't go to c4 because I'd go to b2 and then play a3. So if he went to c2, I could go here and win this pawn and cash this. So that's really what it was. That takes more skill to do it. And that's the way he should have played it. But he played it no, that's what he did. He did that one move. Yes, this is the wrong way, Grasshopper. Yeah, he did what I expected, actually. I expect him to play king c3 and make me prove that I can kick your butt. That's what you should do. You're losing, play king c3 and make him prove it. This is so easy to win after king b5. After seeing these lessons here, anybody 1200 should go, I've seen Black Knight beat this, I got this, and be confident that he's right. That's how you do it, sidestep, and it's cash. Okay, so that's another, it's almost, those two problems are right up my alley to the point where it's almost unfair. I would have kicked myself had I blown those two problems, either one. And then this one, I already showed you. This is a pattern recognition problem for me. Now, I've played forever, blah, 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 do all these problems, got those 50s and whatever, 50 solutions. So this is kind of obvious to a degree because, well, not obvious, but it seems more obvious to me. The only move that probably even comes into consideration for white, other than knight takes, is rook to h3, focusing on this backwards pawn. But he could just play, dude, he could just do that, right? h6 or h5, one of those two would be good. But you're not getting anywhere. Well, you'd win a rook. That's actually a good question. Rook h3? Oh, well, it's kind of the same business. It's not really going anywhere. It's not as forcing. It's probably still winning though. Rook h3 is probably still winning. So, but when I saw this, I said, well, he takes it, and I'm going to check him, and I'm going to eat his bishop. But before I eat his bishop, I realized, I'm going to check him first, because if I eat his bishop, he's going to go here, and I can't do anything. So I take the tempo check to really inconvenience his position. This basic stuff, really. Well, at the level I'm at, it becomes basic because of repetition, and training. Just like when you're looking at a college football player is going to handle weights that a high school football player is not going to handle because of his experience and his improved powers. And that's what it is. My improved powers is what got it. So, killer stuff. Almost 22 minutes. Like this video. It was pretty awesome. Let me know what you think about that 3000 problem. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. You guys know what to do. I'll talk to you later.